The Torn Path to Love, a story of strength and resilience. Linda had grown up in Omaik, a small city filled with bustling markets, friendly neighbors, and scenic riverbanks. Yet she felt alone, spending countless days praying for a love that could turn her life around. Approaching her 30th birthday, Linda worried she might never find a husband. She fasted and prayed, believing that her time would come. God, please answer me. Just send me someone who loves me truly, she whispered, looking up at the night sky. The cool breeze from Amik's hills seemed to carry her prayers into the heavens. One warm evening, Ibe, the man she'd been dating for 2 years, surprised her with a ring. Linda, will you marry me? He asked, looking into her eyes with sincerity. Linda gasped, tears gathering in her eyes as she nodded, overwhelmed with joy. Yes, yes, she cried, her heart bursting with gratitude. At last, her prayers had been answered. She felt like the happiest woman in Omaik. Thank you, God, she whispered as Ibe hugged her tightly. She couldn't wait to share the good news with her friends. The following day, Linda met her friends, Mercy and Flora, at their usual hangout by the Omaik River. She rushed over, practically bursting with excitement. I said yes. Ibe proposed. Linda announced, showing off her ring. Mercy squealed with delight, hugging her friend. But Flora, although she managed a smile, seemed distant. Congratulations, Linda. I'm happy for you, she said, her voice tinged with something Linda couldn't quite place. Linda's joy was too immense to notice Flora's strange tone, but Mercy did, and it left her uneasy. After Linda left, Mercy glanced over at Flora. You're not really happy for her, are you? Flora sighed, avoiding her friend's eyes. I guess I'm just jealous. I lost Victor. Now Linda's getting married, and I have no one. Mercy shook her head, reminding her, true friends celebrate each other's happiness. Linda deserves this joy. Flora nodded but looked away, her expression unreadable. As they left the hangout, Flora opened up about her own heartache. Victor left me without a reason. After 2 years, just like that. Linda's heart softened. I'm so sorry, Flora. But don't lose hope. You'll find love again. Flora forced a smile, though a pang of bitterness gnawed at her. Bursting with excitement, Linda rushed home to tell her mother. She flung open the door, calling out, Mom. Ibe proposed to me. Her mother, Mrs. Oma, looked up from her sewing, her eyes lighting up. My daughter. Finally, all those prayers have been answered. She embraced Linda, her pride evident as they held each other, their hearts full of joy. You're my only child, Linda. This marriage will bring us happiness, Mrs. Oma whispered, her voice thick with emotion. With Ibe's family wealth, wedding plans moved forward at a breathtaking pace. Linda felt like she was living in a dream as vendors, tailors, and decorators swarmed their home. She felt secure and loved, with Ibe promising to make her the happiest bride in Omaik. The night before her dress fitting, Linda had a disturbing dream. In it, she saw a dark figure standing at her wedding, warning her of trouble ahead. She woke up feeling uneasy but dismissed it, assuming it was simply pre-wedding jitters. As they shopped for wedding items, Mercy noticed Linda's nervousness and asked her about it. It's probably nothing, just nerves, Linda said, laughing it off. But Mercy grew more serious. Linda, just be careful. I feel like Flora's not as happy for you as she claims. Linda frowned, unwilling to entertain any doubts. It's probably just her own heartbreak talking. That night, alone in her room, Flora grappled with her emotions. She loved Linda like a sister but couldn't ignore her jealousy and hurt. How could she be truly happy for Linda when she herself had lost love? Tears filled her eyes, and she tried to convince herself that she was overthinking. But somewhere deep within, resentment simmered. 2 days before the wedding, Linda and her friend Mercy went to the market to buy last-minute items for the ceremony. After some time, Mercy received a call and, looking concerned, excused herself, leaving Linda to finish up alone. Linda waved her off, assuring Mercy she'd manage, but as she turned to go, a chill ran down her spine. Linda waited for a taxi, but as evening set in, traffic slowed to a crawl. The sky was darkening, and she noticed heavy clouds gathering above. After waiting for nearly an hour, Linda decided to walk the short distance home, but as she turned down a quiet street, she felt uneasy. A group of 3 masked men appeared in front of her. Before she could scream, they grabbed her, muffled her cries. Desperately, Linda struggled against them, pleading, "Please, my wedding is in 2 days. I'll do anything. Don't do this." Her words fell on deaf ears, and in an instant, her world was shattered. As the men fled into the night, Linda lay on the cold ground, dazed and broken. Linda managed to find her way home, feeling as if she were in a nightmare. She stumbled inside, clutching at the walls for support. Her mother, Mrs. Oma, looked up and gasped, rushing to her daughter's side. "What happened?" Mrs. Oma whispered, seeing the torn dress and hollow look in Linda's eyes. I was hurt," Linda managed to say, her voice cracking. Mrs. Oma embraced her, holding her daughter close, the horror sinking in as she rocked her back and forth in silence. Linda chose not to speak further of the assault. She feared Ibe's reaction if he knew the truth and was determined not to let this tragedy ruin her chance at happiness. Her mother, though grieving, supported her choice, knowing how much this wedding meant to her daughter. But beneath the surface, Linda's heart ached with an unbearable sorrow. On the day of the wedding, Linda forced herself to focus on her love for Ibe, ignoring the pain that threatened to overwhelm her. She dressed in her gown, putting on a brave face, hoping that Ibe's love could bring healing to her soul. As she approached the altar, Linda's heart filled with both hope and fear. Just as the priest began, a voice echoed through the church, "Wait." All heads turned to see Ibe's mother, Madame Yvonne, standing at the back. "My son cannot marry a victim of shame," Madame Yvonne declared, her voice laced with disdain. Linda felt the air leave her lungs as the entire congregation fell silent. Ibe glanced between his mother and Linda, clearly conflicted. Ibe turned to Linda, his eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me my mother's lying." Linda opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded slowly. The pain and betrayal in Ibe's eyes crushed her, and without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Linda standing alone. Desperate, Linda ran after Ibe, stumbling over her gown as she cried his name. But he was gone, and all she could see was the dust of his departing car. Around her, people whispered, and she felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. Humiliated and heartbroken, Linda's body trembled as she sank to the ground, watching her dreams slip away. Back at home, Linda locked herself in her room, replaying the moment over and over in her mind. She couldn't shake the image of Ibe's face, the disbelief and disappointment in his eyes. How could he abandon her so easily? Mrs. Oma knocked softly on the door, her heart breaking for her daughter. "Linda, please come out. Let me be here for you." As the days passed, Linda's pain only grew. She couldn't eat and couldn't sleep. All she could think of was the shame and the hurt. She was drowning in sorrow, the weight of her broken dreams pressing down on her, leaving her to question if life was even worth living. One night, she found herself staring at a knife in the kitchen, her mind filled with despair. Suddenly, Mrs. Oma appeared, eyes wide with worry. "Linda, put it down. I need you. You're my only child. Please don't leave me." Linda looked into her mother's tearful eyes, feeling the depth of her love. With trembling hands, she lowered the knife and fell into her mother's arms, sobbing. "I'm so tired, Mom," she whispered. "I don't know how to go on." With her mother's support, Linda resolved to continue. She found herself pouring all her love and pain into caring for her unborn child, reminding herself that life, however difficult, was precious. Mrs. Omar stayed by her side, watching over her with unwavering love. Weeks passed, and just as Linda began to regain a sense of normalcy, an unexpected visitor arrived at her door. Her ex-boyfriend, Tiger, stood there with a small smile, carrying a bag of baby items. "I heard about what happened. I'm here if you need me," he said, his voice laced with concern. Linda was taken aback, unsure of his intentions. But desperate for support, she invited him inside. Over the next few days, Tiger continued to visit, offering his support and helping care for Linda's child. She appreciated his presence, even though a part of her was wary. She found comfort in his familiar face, and it felt like a small piece of normalcy had returned to her life. Tiger seemed genuine, but there was something about his intensity that left her uneasy. As Linda grew more comfortable with Tiger's presence, she began to rely on him more. He took care of errands, brought groceries, and played with little Damien. He acted as if he wanted nothing in return, but Linda noticed that his eyes would darken whenever she mentioned IB. Linda began to trust Tiger, finding in him a sense of stability and companionship. They spent evenings talking, reminiscing about old times, and for a moment, Linda felt as if she could almost forget the pain of the past. One evening, as they talked, Tiger asked her a probing question. "Do you think you'll ever get over what IB did to you?" The question caught her off guard, and she hesitated. "I don't know. I loved him, but he abandoned me when I needed him most." Tiger's eyes gleamed with a strange intensity as he replied, "Maybe it's better that he's gone. You deserve someone who wouldn't even think of leaving you." News spread throughout Omaik of a reward offered by the police for any information on the men who attacked Linda. The reward stirred up memories for many, but for Tiger, it stirred up something else, fear. He grew anxious, casting nervous glances at the newspaper announcements, and Linda began to notice his strange behavior. Meanwhile, Tiger's old friend, Philip, who had been involved in the attack, caught wind of the reward. Tempted by the money, he began to consider exposing Tiger's role, a thought that sent Tiger into a panic. Tiger grew desperate, taking secret phone calls and disappearing for hours, leaving Linda confused and worried about his behavior. Flora struggled with her guilt over Linda's tragic experiences. She had once felt jealousy and resentment toward Linda's happiness, but now, seeing her friend suffering, she felt nothing but regret. As she sat alone, she thought about ways to make amends and help Linda heal. One evening, Tiger visited Linda, looking unusually tense. She sensed his anxiety but chose not to pry. As they sat together in silence, he suddenly turned to her, his eyes sharp with a desperate intensity. "Linda, I think we should get married," he said. Linda's heart skipped a beat, and her eyes widened in shock. "Tiger, where is this coming from? We've barely begun to rebuild our friendship." He forced a smile but quickly masked it with a blank expression. "I just think you need someone stable in your life, someone who will stick by you no matter what." Linda sensed Tiger's urgency, and it left her uneasy. She gently rejected his proposal, telling him she needed time to heal. But her response sparked an unexpected reaction in him. Tiger's face turned hard, and he leaned closer. "You don't understand, Linda. I can't wait forever." His words sent a shiver down her spine. This was a side of Tiger she had never seen before, one that seemed more threatening than supportive. After Tiger's outburst, Linda confided in her friend Mercy, who listened intently. Mercy began to suspect that there was more to Tiger's sudden return than he was letting on. She decided to keep a close eye on him, determined to protect her friend from further pain. Days later, while visiting the marketplace, Linda overheard a conversation that stopped her in her tracks. Two men were whispering about a man who had come back to Omaik to cover his tracks. They spoke about the assault, hinting that someone close to her knew more than they let on. Linda's heart pounded as she pieced together their words, and a wave of dread washed over her. Could Tiger have been involved in her attack? Linda confronted Tiger the next day, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "Tiger, were you involved in what happened to me that night?" she asked, her eyes blazing with fury. Tiger's face paled, and he stammered, "Linda, please, it's not what you think. I would never hurt you." But Linda's patience had worn thin. "Then tell me the truth," she demanded. Unable to keep up the pretense, Tiger admitted to being a part of the assault, explaining that his jealousy and pain over her engagement to Ibe had driven him to desperate actions. Linda's heart shattering as she listened, horrified by his confession. She immediately called the police, watching as they took Tiger into custody, her trust in him forever broken. After Tiger's arrest, Mercy approached Linda, looking troubled. She confessed that she had been suspicious of Tiger's intentions but had kept her thoughts to herself, fearing Linda would be too vulnerable to handle another betrayal. Linda appreciated Mercy's honesty, though it hurt to know that others had noticed the warning signs before she did. Word of Tiger's betrayal spread quickly throughout Omaik. Linda became the center of a support network, with neighbors, friends, and strangers rallying around her. Despite her pain, she felt a renewed sense of strength from their kindness. "Stay strong, Linda. You've endured more than anyone should, and we're all here for you," one woman told her as they embraced, a gesture that gave Linda the comfort she had longed for. Meanwhile, Ibe's mother, Madame Yvonne, struggled with guilt. She had judged Linda harshly, only to find herself partially responsible for her son's estrangement from the one woman he had truly loved. She decided to visit Linda, hoping to repair the damage she had done. When she arrived at Linda's doorstep, she could barely meet her gaze. "Linda, I was wrong about you. My pride made me blind, and my actions cost you everything. I am truly sorry." Linda hesitated, unsure if she could forgive her. But Madame Yvonne's sincere remorse softened her heart. Linda's relationship with her mother grew stronger as they leaned on each other in times of sorrow and celebration. Mrs. Omar continued to support Linda, helping her with Damien and sharing quiet moments of reflection. Their bond became a source of resilience for Linda, and she began to find hope once again. As time passed, Linda felt a growing desire to turn her suffering into strength. She began thinking about ways to help others who had experienced similar pain. Inspired by her community's support, Linda decided to start a local support group for women, offering a space for them to share their stories and heal. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, comment, share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.